Hello and welcome to lesson 6 of the Jungle Book case study. Today we're looking at the 1967 animated film and exploring the film chain. We're interested here in the 4 stages of the film chain, so those things that are involved in the making of a film and then making it available to an audience. So we'll be looking at the 4 parts of production, distribution, marketing and exhibition. Now for this case study you will need to know quite a lot of factual information about the film chain for the Jungle Book of 1967. For paper 2 section A you'll be asked to answer a 15-mark question, and at the top end OCR ask you to have what they call a comprehensive knowledge and understanding of the film industry, giving specific reference to this film as well as its 2016 counterpart. First of all, I'd like to just briefly recap our last session where we talked about the 1960s context of the film. And I displayed for you this timeline that just gave us a little bit of background information about Disney as a company that had evolved from the 1920s right the way through to the point where the Jungle Book is released in 1967. And we can see it already is a well-known and established filmmaking institution that has integrated itself into different areas such as television and theme parks by the time Jungle Book is released. We also talked briefly about the historical context of the film and just placing it within the era of the 1960s, a time of both social and political change, where we have significant movements such as the civil rights movement during the 60s and second wave of feminism. And finally we talked about the 60s economic context, looking at how film can be seen as a risky business during this time due to increased competition from new technology that can now become available in the home. Increased competition such as radio and television, but also the decline as a result of this of cinema audiences, leading to the closure of a lot of cinemas, and the film industry as being again at a significant moment where we have the emergence of new directors, innovative filmmaking techniques, and the emergence of what is later referred to as New Hollywood. So it's out of this background that the Jungle Book is created. And we want to look at this film as being really significant as a piece of animation, and we want to look at how it was made, how it's been released, and how we can help ourselves to understand the evolution of the film industry through focusing on this movie as an example. So I'll turn to the knowledge organiser first before we go through the 4 stages of the film chain. So The Jungle Book in 1967 is a highly successful animated classic. It is made in the famous Hollywood film studio called Walt Disney Productions, and it costs $4 million to produce. At the time it was released, and in its first release, it grosses over $24 million. So this tells us that this is a highly successful film and highly profitable. During the production of the film then, highly specialised methods of animation were used, and we're going to discuss what some of those are. We'll see Disney really as being a pioneer with the use of this technology, but it's often at the forefront of any advancement in the production of animation. We'll look at the film as having a really successful soundtrack, in fact the first to achieve gold status in the USA, and also how Disney is able to use its theme parks, its television channels to further promote its films, using synergy as a successful marketing strategy. Okay, so I'm going to start at stage 1, film production, I'll be reading through the bullet points that are listed in your knowledge organizer and expanding on some of them. So you might want to pause the video at different stages and make notes. And you'll be answering questions about this film at the end of this session. So, as I've already stated, the film is made in the studio Walt Disney Productions at a cost of $4 million. The director of the film is Wolfgang Reitherman, who is also director of many of Disney's other animated classics, including 101 Dalmatians. This is the final film that Walt Disney worked on before his death in 1966. And it becomes significant because Disney becomes involved in all aspects of the production process. It is widely reported that Disney was greatly unhappy with the first version of the film that animators submitted. He said that the script was too dark, and he wanted to move away from some of the darker themes that might be evident in Rudyard Kipling's original novel. The ideas of law and freedom, the struggle for survival, for example, was to be replaced instead with a family-friendly, happy film. And as Walt is quoted as saying, he wanted happy songs, good stuff, fun stuff. So it's really significant that he is so heavily involved in the making of this film, and that it is the last film that he's involved in the production of. The 1967 version is also the first film to use celebrity voice casting, and it's quite incredible, really, that as early as the 60s that this was a technique used, because it's something that's quite common today. Disney uses celebrity voice casting here actually first, before the characters are finalised and created. Therefore, he's able to link the characteristics of those celebrities and their voices to enable more personality and realism in the animated characters. And there are many animation techniques that make this film a significant one of study. Things like cel animation as storyboarding, as well as the use of xerography for efficiency, and the multiplane camera to give 3D-like effects. Voice casting, then, is one that's worth having a look at because it gives us a nice piece of direct comparison when we come to look at the 2016 version. Disney uses voice casting for the first time here to cast actors who are famous for their voices, whether as musicians or whether they've worked within radio or television or films previously. So Phil Harris, whose voice would have been widely recognised by audiences at the time, is cast as Baloo. Baloo originally was to be a minor character in the film, but it was Phil Harris's popularity and indeed his personality that encouraged Disney to redraft the script and to make Baloo a much bigger character and part within the film. We see things such as popular music of the time being utilised here. So it's not the Beatles who feature, but certainly is supposed to be obvious to an audience that this is the sound of the Beatles and the accent of the singers. We have Louis Prima then as King Louis, and it's within the song I Want to Be Like You and the dance routines that are used that are also influenced by Prima's performance on stage and some of the things that were seen in rehearsals. So this is a significant part of the production of the film, and something that we might view as being a very modern technique. Okay, so cel animation was the way in which film and animation was made at this time. So cel, C-E-L, was short for celluloid, and that being a transparent sheet on which the objects were drawn or painted, and this forms the basis of hand-drawn animation. Now, Disney, by this point, it is releasing The Jungle Book, and this is its 19th animated classic film. So they're quite far along in terms of their technological advancement of animation. So they're able to develop processes of cell animation that help to give what they call a depth of field and to make the animations appear to have a 3D-like effect. Now, there are quite a few videos online. If you search into YouTube, for example, multi-plane camera, you can see some examples of this in use. The OCR from the resource that they also provide give us a little bit of background. So they say that cell animation was patented by the Earl Hurd in 1914, that the cells were originally fixed onto pegs, and this way various layers of image could be shot at once, so that the backgrounds didn't need to be repainted each time. However, Disney developed this idea by using the multi-plane camera. This was able to photograph a much larger number of layers or frames at once, up to 7, and they could also be at different distances from each other and moving at different speeds. This creates really an illusion of depth and a 3D-like effect. And it enables other movements to be created, such as the movement of water, which you can see in the waterfalls in the film, or the flickering of stars in the sky. So it's a very clever way to create more realistic looking animations. Alongside this, xerography was also used to be able to copy cell animation and make the process of an efficiency of production even better. So the animators weren't having to painstakingly redraw and repaint each new cell. They were able to kind of copy, like a photocopier, images that they already have, to build on them, and sometimes also interestingly, to recycle them. And shot recycling is also used by Disney throughout this time. So we see the reuse of certain images. There's a really good video, again on YouTube. If you're interested in watching it, you can just search for shot recycling, and I would use this clip in class because I find it so fascinating. But you can see here, even later, images from The Jungle Book are reused in the release of Robin Hood, and again with images from the first film, Snow White, reused in Robin Hood. But they do this in lots of other ways too. So this is a really clever technique. It's cost effective, it's time saving, and it enables them to speed up the process of animation, which in the past have been an incredibly time consuming job. Okay, so you may wish to pause the video here to process your notes and then to answer some of the questions that appear on the handout, or you may wish to continue looking at the next stage and then answer the questions at the end.